Hello everyone, thank you so much for stopping by my channel once again. I am going to be doing a Bible journal entry based off of Psalm 29. Now the inspiration was actually from a song that I will link down in the description box. My sister had sent that song to me and said that if I could come up with an inspiration for a Bible entry based on the song. Because it is a song and it's not based, I mean, all songs are inspired by the Word of God. However, it wasn't like specific to one verse, so I went ahead and looked at Psalm 29 where it talks about the voice of the Lord. And so it's basically all that chapter, and I really liked it. It was kind of in line with the song and the painting that I want to do along with that verse and the song. So I was also inspired by a video from the Bob Ross YouTube channel, and I just wanted to give it a try. I have never used oil paints. I think I did once, but I was very little and I don't remember much as far as how they look or how they paint and stuff. But all I remember is they were very oily, at least the ones that I had. They were like kid paints. So I looked through some of the stuff that I have on hand. I bought these a long time ago. They came with a kit along with some acrylic paints that I had from a long time ago, and so I've just poured these for maybe 4 or 5 years. So I thought I'd give them a shot. So these are all the oil colors that I have, and they're the Winsor & Newton oil colors. So I don't have black. So the inspiration that Bob Ross uses, he uses black and white gesso, and then he goes with some yellow and green and blue colors. And I just want to try to recreate it. If I can, I'll try to put the video where he is doing the painting. I had planned on doing it side by side, but I kind of wanted to do my own inspiration, not recreate the same thing, just the same kind of painting. But I did not want to follow him step by step after all. So I might do that maybe later. But because I have not worked with oils, colors, I want to give this a shot first. I did test it a little bit before, so I am going to go ahead and use this Distress Glaze. It's supposed to be a water resistant sealer because these are oils, and the color after it dries was still kind of rubbing off my fingers, as you see right here. So I used the glaze and dried it up and made sure that it didn't transfer, and that seemed to work. So I will use that. Now I don't have a black color in the oil, so if I can't mix a black kind of color, I will go ahead and use this chalk color in rich black for my background, and then I'll see how else I incorporate it if I can't get a black color. So I'm going to be using this flat, it's a 20 flat brush, and I'll try to just use this one. I also thought about using this sponge type, and this one I got at Dollar Tree. It comes like in a pack of 3, so you can use that as well. And then I will be using some of this Jane Davenport gesso. There's very little of it, but I don't need too much of it. So another thing that I will be using is this paper towel, and I'm going to kind of do this and then use that to create a technique which I'll explain in the video. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'll put you on fast forward and see how this goes.
Okay, so to start off here, I'm going to be using some washi tape to kind of be a barrier between the passages here. I do not want to get the paint on the words here because it is going to be pretty dark. So I just ran that washi tape on my hand to kind of take most of the stickiness off, and laid that down to protect the passage. And I am going in with some of that black chalk paint to start off with, so that's going to be my background layer, and I'm using that 20 flat paintbrush to get all of that paint. Now, because this is chalk paint, it is absorbing into the page a lot quicker, so I had to use a couple of squeezes as I was working through, because it was drying really quick and not really being as fluid. So to make sure everything is dry, I heat set everything with my heat tool. And once everything is dry, I'm going to use a paper towel and kind of squish it together. No particular way of squishing, just kind of pinch it together and dab into the white gesso and add a couple splashes, or I don't know what this technique would be called, dabs maybe. So just repeat the same motion I am doing on the video. And I did add some black chalk paint to my painter's palette, and then dabbing a little bit of the white gesso with the black chalk paint. Now, Bob Ross was doing everything with black and white gesso to start off this part. I did not have black gesso, so basically what I was doing is mixing it with the white gesso to give me some gray tones and white and darker grayer tones to my little dabbing motions here. I know it looks like nothing at the moment, but it's supposed to kind of be like the foliage in a forest in the background. So it'll make sense as I work through this painting. And I added some washi tape to hold the page in place because of the paint, it did want to curl on me. So I went ahead and added that to keep it in place. So next I'm grabbing one of these sponge brushes. Again, I got this at Dollar Tree. They come in a pack. And I'm using the smaller size one to create some wood trees or some tree trunks. And I am just using that, adding some pressure. At first I thought they were too skinny, so I do go back and forth with them to make them a little bit thicker. Some of them I am making them just black, and then some I'm adding more of gray and some white, because as the painting goes along, there's going to be a ray of sunshine or rays of sunshine hitting some of these trees, so the parts where it's whiter, that's where the light is going to reflect off these trees. So once I'm kind of happy with how that is looking, I'm going to go back in with some more of that chalk paint. Now, because it is chalk paint, it did end up kind of fading. It's not as a dark black as I would like it. I think for this particular part, if I could redo this or recreate this, I think I would use some black acrylic paint. I know that black acrylic paint, or acrylic paints in general, when they dry, it's kind of like a reflection. It's shiny. So that's not the look I was going for this particular part, so that's why I was hesitant to use some black, but it would have helped make those trees pop. But this is what I ended up doing. So on the other side, I'm just kind of repeating the same thing I did on the other larger side. I am trying to just keep it to one tree on the smaller side of my page here. And I grabbed this small brush. I need to buy new brushes of this size because this one, the bristles are folded to one side, and it's just because I don't take care of them very well. So I end up like resting. Once I'm done painting, I just leave them in a jar, and so the bristles end up curling. And so this one's not as straight. So when I try to um, create these thinner branches on my tree, some of them look kind of weird and wonky, but I just kept going, and I was fairly satisfied while I was doing this portion, the black and white portion of my painting, but later on I start to have mixed feelings about this. I did share that on my Instagram stories, two paintings actually, and one I did it in acrylic, and the other one, which is this one, I did in oil paints, and I had mixed feelings on both these paintings, so I don't know. I guess my creative juices were not as strong this time around. So anyways, I'm just adding some more of those tree branches, and I'm adding just like random twigs in the background, and then emphasizing some of these trees by adding a little bit of shadowing with the black chalk paint, which I did dilute by adding a little bit of water so it can be more fluid, so I can make these branches, because if I just went straight with the chalk paint, it wasn't really allowing me to do nice brush strokes. It was looking like really rough, so I had to add a little bit of water to make it a little fluid and allow me to do these smooth branches here. So I'm just doing that, adding some twigs till I'm satisfied, and then on the other side I'm doing the same thing. My tree branches are not the best. Not one to be out in nature very much, so I get a lot of my inspiration from the Bob Ross videos or some pictures that I see online or just by looking at my backyard, but I'm not really a nature type of person. I'm not out in nature very often. I don't like bugs, so I don't like bugs, I don't like bears, I don't like scary things, so I pretty much stay inside. But I try my best to recreate just by seeing some pictures. But anyways, so what you saw me place all over my Bible page was some of that distress glaze. And the reason for that, it's going to act as my clear liquid that Bob Ross uses on top of his painting to kind of get that smooth transition in colors. So because I'm not working on a canvas, I'm working on my Bible page, I can't use that clear liquid that he uses. So I thought that this glaze would help, one, seal everything, and two, help transition those colors when I tried to blend them. So it worked pretty well for just kind of testing this out. That first color that I added was the blue oil color that I spread all over, kind of like in a round motion and kind of darker on the outer corners of my page here. And then I went in with some yellow to kind of emphasize the foliage at the bottom of the trees, and then I did bring some of that up towards the blue to kind of give that like a greeny color because the forest is green, and just to kind of show when the rays are added in place to my page here, just to kind of give that reflection of light. So now I have blended all my foliage at the bottom, and now I am trying to place my sunshine, or where my light source would be. So I opted for this particular position of my light source, and I grabbed some of that white gesso and diluted it quite a bit with water, and I was not satisfied with the way it was kind of just blending. It looked more like a fog and not so much like light. So I added a little bit of yellow to the water diluted gesso, and I am just creating a circle and blending that out so it doesn't look like a full-on circle. So as you can see here, I end up adding that yellow, and then it's a little too bright, so then I go back in with that white gesso and then just try to blend them together and work on it and doing some of these X strokes. And I am just making these rays where I had put the lightest parts of the trees, and that's where the light is going to be hitting it. So you see with that one ray hitting the two trees that I made a little bit lighter, and that's where the ray is hitting. And so I'm just emphasizing these rays. I honestly, looking back on this, I could have done a way better blending these rays. But I think I was just so anxious to kind of finish up and see how it was all gonna come together. And here I am just blending and blending and blending. And then once I'm kind of satisfied with it, I do run my fingers through it to kind of just help blend it even further and not be so bright. And then I grab my brush and I'm adding a little bit of whatever yellow color was left on that brush up onto the trees, just to have that reflection in the trees. And then next I'm doing the same thing on the other side. However, for the background here, I wanted it to be a little bit darker so the tree pops out of the background here. So I did some pine trees using some blue and black oil paints, and did some dabbing motions on here, as you see, to create some pine trees, but then they were too dark. They weren't really showing up on my page, so I add just the faintest yellow to the what would be like the I guess the edges or the tree parts of the pine tree. And then I added a little bit of yellow down that tree because the ray of sunshine is going to extend to that large tree on the smaller portion here of my page. And yeah, I think if I could recreate this page, maybe I wouldn't have done that side, or maybe I would have tackled it a little differently. But at this point I was all in, so I had to finish. And I was experimenting with oil colors. I had never really used any oil paints, not acrylics, in my Bible. So I'm really just redoing the same thing I did on the other side on this particular site that you're watching. So I'm going to let you in on not a tip, but an FYI. If you do try to recreate this painting on your Bible, make sure that you let it sit for at least 3 to 4 days, because oil paints do take a while to dry. Once it's dry, you can seal it with Mod Podge, you can seal it with some matte gel medium, or you can even seal it with a matte acrylic paint spray sealer that worked beautifully for me. So that is it for this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Bye bye.